What's up guys, it's Drifts and Lifts here. Alright, so today I got just a short episode for you guys. I want to go over a couple things on the Panel Wagon, actually a lot of things. So if you guys saw the last episode, I was in the garage, I was kind of discussing the plans for the Panel Wagon. So it's been a really productive week at the house. I got the motor all into the car, and now we are at Post Haste Performance here. So this is the tuning shop that sponsors the channel. So local to me in Chilliwack, BC. If you guys have any tuning needs, always hit up Post Haste. So we got it in the dyno bay right now, and over the last couple days, I've just been hooking everything up. We've done a lot of different mods to try to make this thing reliable. So I didn't get a whole lot of footage of putting this engine together, guys, but right now I'll show you just some of the stuff. I got a little bit of footage. We were in there messing around, so this is actually the motor from Harold. So if you guys remember Harold, that was the off-road car that I got there. I scrapped and parted out that car because it had a good motor in it, and it was kind of, you know, the car was kind of on its last legs. It had a lot of damage. So what we're doing here is I have a pile of parts sitting in this box here that we're going to be installing into this block. We got some max speeding connecting rods. So if you guys remember the video I did where I got these from Max Speeding Rods, pretty cool. Let's just take a little look here. So this is an H-beam connecting rod from Max Speeding Rods. So from what I've read on the interwebs, apparently these are the same rods that CX Racing and all these other companies make. It's just rebranded essentially. So it's a really good, strong rod. Apparently these are, you know, they're capable of 7,000 to 9,000 RPM. I think like 700 horsepower they're rated on the box or something. So obviously that's pretty ballpark, but yeah, it's definitely, the design of the rod is much stronger than a factory 13mm rod. A lot of people run these in these engines, so I think they're gonna be pretty sweet for going for some high horsepower numbers. So if you guys remember, here's the Miss Huff head. So this thing is actually, I've had this on an NA setup on Miss Huff back in the day, and I've also had it on a turbo setup. So I had this on the Panel Wagon for a while there. If you guys remember, we got rod knock on that motor because our turbo issue, we were losing a lot of oil. I wasn't checking the oil enough, and I starved it of oil. We rod knocked the motor, but that setup was really cool. This cam makes this thing rev like crazy, and this motor honestly was pretty good. It didn't have like any audible piston slap from when you would start it up, and it was a pretty smooth running motor. So obviously the bores aren't perfect. They are a little bit worn like any old red block. There will be a little bit of piston slap. There's going to be some blow by to an extent, but we're just going to kind of send it. And just so you guys know, my good friend Dan here at Post Haste Performance is quite against doing things not by the book, not perfect, right? So we're kind of doing it a little bit half-ass here. Dan really wanted me to get it honed out, put proper rings in it, do it the proper way, because that's how he does everything. But I'm low on funds right now. We're gonna slap something together and hope for the best. So we got all of our rods attached to our stock pistons. We cleaned out the rings and got them like unstuck and all free and kind of, you know, a little bit nicer than they were. They're pretty grimy. So what we're gonna do right now is install these pistons into the block. And then once we get the pistons in, then we can put our rod bearings in and tighten those down. Max Speeding rods come with ARP hardware, so that's pretty cool. This will definitely be stronger than the factory rod hardware. Yeah, hopefully we can make some good power out of this thing. Also guys, before I get into the video, I want to show you guys my new merchandise. So if you saw the last video, you'll know that we finally have merchandise up for sale on the channel. So you guys can go to the Drifts and Lifts store. The link to the store is in the description of this video. We have our Epic Volvo Drift hoodie. So we got the badge on the front, big, you know, logo on the back, and then we also got our GOT red block toques. So that's all we have for now on the site, but you know, if you guys want to support the channel, a great way to do it. All right guys, so I'll try to illuminate this as best I can. I'm just doing this video on my GoPro 9 right now. All right, so where do we start here? So last setup of the Panel Wagon was, if you guys remember, we had a stock B230 engine in here with a K-cam. Other than that, the motor was completely stock. It had a stock bottom end, stock rods, stock rod bearings. Like, it was basically a really high kilometers engine that I slapped in here and pushed 30 pounds of boost through. I was basically hoping for the best, and as you guys saw, it did not last very long. So this is actually, I think, the 4th motor that has gone into this car, which is a little bit ridiculous. So this time around, we hopefully got it a little bit more reliable and a little bit built more solid than the last time. So what we did, guys, as you saw just in the footage there, we put H-beam rods in. So that kind of gets rid of our, weak bottom end issue. Unfortunately, we did not change the main bearings because I did not have any at my house, and it seemed like every company I was trying to get them from didn't have them in stock. So unfortunately, we went with the stock main bearings. This motor was from Harold, so I'm hoping it is gonna be all good in that sense. The motor, like, I never ran it out of oil or anything. It did get beat on pretty hard, but it is what it is. So one thing you guys are probably noticing in this engine bay is the addition to a vibrant catch can. So what we did, I'll put the car up on a lift and we'll actually go under there and I'll show you guys in a sec here. But the issue we were having before, and honestly all my Volvos have had this issue, was our PCV system was never up to par of the, the blow by and the boost I was running through these motors. So running just the stock PCV line, try to get my phone and camera in the same hand. So running just this stock PCV line off of the factory breather box just wasn't cutting it. It honestly isn't enough. There's not enough surface area for the crankcase pressure to actually relieve itself. So we actually added a whole nother relief. So we went off the valve cover for this one. And as you guys can see, both of these are going into a vibrant catch can. So this catch can has like a baffle down the middle with a bunch of holes in it. So this is gonna let out all of our crankcase pressure. And then I will show you guys in a sec here, but we actually did a drain back down to the pan. So pretty excited about that. I think it's gonna work pretty well. Like I said, guys, we did new rod bearings. So the rod bearings are all good, brand new from Rock Auto. They're just a standard size. Our rod clearance of the bearing clearance was really good too. I forget what it checked out to be, but it was like almost right in the middle of what the spec is supposed to be. So, and as you guys remember from the last video, if you watched it, we added our 531 head back onto this engine. So basically it's kind of cool because I forgot to mention, guys, this motor is actually a squirter block. So take a look at that. We got the 531. So shout out to my man Dennis Blom from Sweden. He hooked me up with this. This was actually the head that was on Miss Huff a long time ago, and it's gone through a couple engines now. It was on a turbo setup with pump gas for a while, and now we're here. So this head has a crazy NA cam in it. It's like 310 degrees of duration on this cam. The head is also shaved 2 millimeters. So the compression ratio, static compression ratio on this engine is, I think, about 10 to 1, 10.5 to 1, maybe around there. So it is pretty high. We are running the stock turbo pistons. So on Miss Huff, when I had it on the NA block, it was about like 11.5 to 1. The turbo pistons lower it like basically a whole point. So now you guys are probably thinking, well, that's pretty high compression for a turbo engine, especially with the big hole set on it, drifts and lifts. So what we did, guys, is I actually got another set of injectors. So I found these on Marketplace, actually. They are Siemens Deca, well, they're actually a Snake Eater performance injector. So a budget style injector, but apparently they're fairly good. Guys are, guys are having pretty good luck with them. So this is a 1000 cc injector. Now, as you guys can see, we have our flex fuel sensor hooked up right here. So the plan for this engine, if you guys remember the last setup, we had it on an ethanol, a 30% ethanol mixture. So they call it E30. This engine is going to be on a full ethanol mixture. So we actually changed the lines out and we put an AEM beefy fuel pump in. So we got like the 340 liters per hour fuel pump. So that's gonna be good. The stock fuel pumps are actually holding up pretty well. Last setup, the stock fuel pumps were still holding up at 350 wheel horsepower, which honestly, in my opinion, is pretty impressive for a stock fuel pump, but they're not gonna be up to snuff of doing like 400 plus wheel horsepower. So we got that, and with these injectors, the forums and like injector calculators say that on like an E60 mixture, So the pump ethanol, guys, from here, like I said, is E60 usually. It's not actually E85. So, you know, people on the interwebs will tell you that 1000cc injectors in a 4-cylinder on E85 will do about 400 wheel. We might get a little bit more out of that just because it's E60 instead of full E85. All right, so what is the next thing? So we still have our Total Turbo Services HE341. Shout out to Total Turbo Services, guys. They are one of the other sponsors of the channel. They do all my turbo stuff for me, really good. Addison is my buddy. He runs the shop, and I've gotten a couple turbos built by him now, and they've always been awesome. So I'm really excited to actually, you know, really work this whole set. I think it's gonna be flowing some good air this time, kind of, you know, put it kind of in the mid-range of its compressor map. If you put a whole set on one of these engines and you only run it at 10 pounds, 15 pounds of boost, you're really not using the whole set for what it's for. You know, this is for an engine that's going to be running 20 plus PSI of boost. So the whole set's going to be sweet. As you guys saw, you know, last time we had our oil line. So this oil line has a restrictor in it. So that's going to help out because I'm only running a -10 drain line on this turbo. So the whole sets are supposed to have a -14, I think a -12 or 14 drain line, but I could not have that fit there, so I went with the -10, and instead we're running a bit of a restrictor. Seemed to work out last time, so we're gonna run it this time. Just did a new head gasket in the engine, guys, so new head bolts as well, so that's all bolted down. What else did we have to do? Actually, to put this head on this engine, guys, I had to change out the balance shaft pulley because the 94 engines, if you guys didn't know, actually have a round tooth timing belt, whereas the older engines from like 93 and before all had square tooth. So I swapped the crank pulley down there, sorry, not the crank pulley, the actual crank gear. I swapped that to a square tooth from, you know, I had just a bunch of gears laying in my garage. So that's all good now. And also, guys, we did our shorter timing belt because this head is shaved 2 millimeters. This timing belt has to be 1 tooth less, or else you will not be able to tension it. So that's, you know, I'm pretty stoked. I think this head's gonna work out pretty good on this ethanol setup. You know, this is a lot of compression for a turbo motor, but apparently on full ethanol, you can get away with a lot of compression on a turbo motor. So another thing we did, guys, if you look at that white wire down there, so that actually is an oil pressure sensor. So Dan at Post Haste Performance here hooked up an oil pressure sensor to the EMU, or ECU, and also he did a fuel pressure sensor as well. If we take a look right there, that's going down, right down there. So fuel pressure sensor, we're gonna be able to tell if we lose fuel pressure. And you know, like when you're running such high horsepower and really putting your motor to the test, you don't want to lose fuel pressure. You can literally melt a piston that way. So I figured, you know, if we're gonna do it this time, let's try our best to make it semi-reliable. To be honest, guys, I'm pretty sick of putting new motors in this car, so I'm really hoping this thing lasts for a little while. We're actually gonna try to fire this thing up. So we got Dan in the driver's seat. He's got the EMU hooked up to his laptop right now, and we're gonna see if this thing fires. One good thing is here at Post Haste Performance, we have an injector tester and cleaner. So luckily every set of injectors that I bring by, usually they're a cheap set of shitty marketplace injectors. So, you know, that really wouldn't be a good idea, but luckily Dan has an injector tester. So we're able to see if our shitty marketplace injectors actually flow okay. These ones turned out to be pretty good. Everything was fairly equal. Good enough to, you know, put a good tune on. Dan just tried to start it. It did start, as you guys could see. We got that chop back, which I'm pretty excited about. This cam isn't like optimal for this setup, but it has a lot of character with the crazy chop and the crazy high RPM pull. So what was I gonna show you guys? So we're in the engine bay here, and also the reason why we couldn't get it running right now is because these injectors are too big, and Dan just informed me that my cam position sensor, so the hall sensor on the distributor, is not working right now, so he had to run those off of batch fire, essentially just off the crank position sensor, and these injectors are too big to run on a batch fire. More or less the minimum amount of fuel they can put out is too much, so it's super rich at idle. So what I'm gonna do is install a new hall sensor on the distributor, and then we're gonna hook up sequential injection again. So that should allow us to run these 1000 cc's and get it to idle properly and stuff like that. So as far as the engine bay, guys, one more thing I should mention is the last two engines that we had in here, we're running a blue aftermarket crank pulley on it. So I think I have it right here. So this pulley we're running on the last two engines. Now, Dan got me thinking, and he was like, you should not run this pulley because it's not an actual harmonic balancer. You know, it's just an aluminum pulley. When you're running a solid crank pulley like this, often a lot of people would say that you should balance the crankshaft with this bolted to it. So, you know, maybe the reason, guys, that I blew up the last two motors could have very well been because of this. You know, the harmonics of the engine, once you get to higher RPM, you can start wearing out bearings and rod bearings and stuff like that, because essentially the crank is going up and down like this. And yeah, it's really hard on bearings and stuff like that. So I'm thankful that Dan kind of gave me the advice to swap this out with a stock pulley. So if you look down there, I'm running a stock harmonic balancer on it again. Luckily this one I have on there is in pretty good shape. It was actually like a used one that I had from a car sitting in the garage or an engine or something, but I don't know, I think it'll do the trick. It's not slipping. Take a look down there. So what are we gonna do? So, oh yeah, I'm gonna show you guys a couple things under the car. So let's throw it up in the air right now. Another thing, guys, is if you've ever done an in-tank fuel pump on a Volvo 740, good God, is it so much easier on a wagon. When you have a sedan, it's so tight in there and you literally gotta like tuck yourself. I guess if you're a big guy, it's pretty tough, but if you're a small guy, it might be a little easier. But yeah, just the wagons are way easier to work on, so that's another reason why a wagon is cooler. Two JZ, no shit. See you later. All right, guys, so under here, let's take a look. Is my fuel pump leaking still? No, it's not. Or my fuel filter. So we're actually running the factory lines. I think I mentioned that we replaced the lines. We only replaced the lines in the engine bay. The factory Volvo lines are actually okay to run on ethanol, just not maybe not for years on end with full ethanol, but I think it should be fine for this. So if you look here, guys, we actually deleted the main fuel pump underneath the car here. So we're just running this stock Volvo line. I don't know what this is. I think it's like an accumulator or something for fuel pressure, but I probably should have deleted it. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. New fuel filter, we ran like a -6 to -8, I wanna say. And then I just hose clamped it. And then on this side, we're actually just running the same stock line that was already there. So that's all cool. Now let's take a look here. So, all right, guys, you see coming from my catch can there, we got the braided -10 line. So that's going into our oil pan. As you can see, we did a little weld on the oil pan there. So now I have actual, oh no, we're leaking from our oil drain a little bit. Just a little bit though, nothing too crazy. So the reason why I did this, guys, is I would lose a lot of oil out the PCV tube when I ran it to atmosphere. So this way, you know, all my oil goes back down to the pan, and this way I can run my oil level just like nice and high. I can run it like 4.5 liters instead of like 3.5 liters. This way we're always gonna make sure there's oil coming to the oil pump. So I personally think this is gonna be really dope. The only thing about this is some of the oil that it's gonna shoot back into the pan is gonna be a little bit grody, kind of mixed with moisture. The only thing is I'm gonna have to change my oil quite often. So after every track event, I should be changing this oil, that kind of thing. Check out our Kaplanke knuckle setup. Shout out to Kaplanke Racing. These guys sent me these knuckles like way back in the day, a couple of years ago. Still using them, I really like them. Maybe I'll switch to like you know, a Swedish aftermarket, I think TXR setup one day, but these are definitely doing the trick for now. I really like the geometry of them. They get rid of bump steer, that kind of thing. So yeah, guys, other than that, that's pretty much all for under the car here. So here is actually 2 of the injectors that we're running in this car right now. SEP Snake Eater Performance 1000cc. So I actually bought a set of 6 of these off Facebook Marketplace from some guy for like 150 bucks. And luckily 4 of them fuel tested in the injector tester perfectly. So these ones were a little bit out, not quite the same as the other 4. So, you know, obviously we left them out, but not a bad deal. Definitely not a bad marketplace find. Okay, another thing, guys, before I get going here, I wanted to show you my new transmission setup. So we actually just got that. Shout out to my man, Dennis Blom from Sweden, the Doctorn. So Dennis actually, I thought it was gonna take like 2 months for this transmission setup to come in. So he actually sent me a BMW ZF 5-speed from an E36 328i. That is welded to the red block bell housing now. He sent me a drive shaft that bolts up, as well as a shifter setup that bolts up. So to go along with all this power that we're gonna be making out of this motor now, I have a proper, solid, strong transmission. So we're gonna be tuning this car with the M47 just because we wanna get it on the dyno, get it going tomorrow. But after I tune it, I'm probably not gonna waste a whole lot of time, and I'm probably gonna hop into swapping that transmission in, because what's the point of blowing up an M47 if I don't have to? I have a stronger transmission ready to go. Let's just put it in. Anyways, guys, so shout out to Post Haste Performance. Dan has helped me tremendously over the years, just with everything, all my projects. He's a really, really knowledgeable guy. It's really nice to be friends with a guy like this, because any questions I have, anything I'm not sure of, he's usually got a really good set of advice for me. So yeah, I wouldn't want anybody else to tune my cars. Definitely a lot of trust in Post Haste Performance. They've done a lot of really good tunes for me. It's funny because my shit always blows up, but it's definitely not in the tune making that happen. Dan always shows me the logs and everything he does in depth with his tunes, and like, it's perfect basically. You can't get much better. So really cool. Also guys, before I go, if you want to support the channel, we could really use the support right now, because getting this merchandise startup happening, and with all the money I just put in the Panel Wagon, things are pretty tight right now. So if you guys want to support the channel, head over to the Drifts and Lifts store and cop your Drifts and Lifts Epic Volvo Drift hoodies. You guys are probably looking at this. There's a bit of a stain on this one. And I promise you none of the other hoodies come with a stain on them. This one was actually the one that they modified, and we were doing a bunch of like test hoodies to see how we like them. So they were like taking this logo off and putting it back on a bunch of shit. So this is just kind of like a mock-up hoodie. I'm just rocking it because I'm wrenching right now. So yeah guys, but we also have the GOT red block toques. We're selling those really cheap because we weren't super stoked on the quality of them. It's just a cheap toque, and you know, we're selling it for dirt cheap because of that. So unfortunately, we're doing, not really unfortunately, honestly, this is actually gonna benefit for you guys that want 2 items, but we're doing flat rate shipping. So if you guys buy just a toque, you're gonna pay, you know, flat rate shipping on that. But if you buy a toque and a hoodie, you're gonna pay the same amount of shipping. So you may as well do it that way. Also, these hoodies are really good quality, much better than the ones I got from Teespring back in the day. We actually picked these hoodies out ourselves and got something that we were like happy with. So anyways guys, I'm really excited. So as you can see, I usually say stuff to come for the channel, but as you guys can see, this is kind of what we're doing the next couple days. So in next video, we're gonna have the video of us actually dyno tuning this. Hopefully, the goal is to make 450 wheel horsepower out of this setup with the 1000cc injectors. We'll see what happens. If the motor can hold together and everything works out, I don't see why we couldn't make that kind of power. It's gonna be run on the ragged edge, but we have max speeding rods. We got our H-beam rods now, so those aren't gonna be bending on us or anything like that. And yeah, I guess that's all for tonight, guys. I'm gonna go eat some food, hit the gym, and yeah, we will talk to you in the next one. So like and subscribe for stinky Volvo discharge. Peace out.